Have been the target of suspected gas attacks. About 30 students were taken to hospital in the northern Kunduz province after losing consciousness or vomiting. About 6 girls also needed treatment in the capital, Kabul. At least 3 similar incidents have taken place in girls' schools in those 2 cities in recent weeks.
I was going to leave the class when I saw a black-clothed man. Only his eyes were visible. He put some drugs on our table, and then he left. My teacher climbed out of the window to check on his baby, and the baby was unconscious as well.
Well, let's take a closer look at the current status of girls and women in Afghanistan. According to the UN's Development Fund for Women, the female literacy rate now stands at 16% compared with 47% for men. Afghanistan has the second highest maternal mortality rate in the world, coming second only to Sierra Leone. The average life expectancy of an Afghan woman is 44 years, and domestic violence is also widespread. One UN survey found 87% of Afghan women face physical or psychological abuse from their husbands. Mariam Nawabi is the Vice President of the Nooristan Foundation, a non-profit organization working on charitable and education projects in rural Afghanistan. And she joins me now live from Irvine in California. Thank you for being with us. This makes pretty grim reading, and it tends to highlight what President Bush said had been a massive increase in the improvement rather in the lives of women in Afghanistan. What's been your experience?
Well, we obviously know the United States went into Afghanistan initially for strategic interests, but I do think that once the United States was there, it became very evident that women's issues were an important part of the overall context. As we know, countries in which women are more advanced in terms of education and economic development, there's more peace and stability in the country. So the Bush administration did put some emphasis on women's issues. There was an Afghan Women's and Children's Relief Act that was passed. And, you know, there was money put into schools and education.
And yet we've got the UN Assistance Mission in Afghanistan issued a report last year saying the current reality is women are denied their most fundamental human rights.
Yes, this is true. Afghanistan has, traditionally in the past, it was a progressive Islamic country, and it had ratified international treaties and conventions. The new constitution does have an equality clause. However, its implementation of those laws, we have to look at women in the broader context. If there's little security, then that affects women. And women are the greater victims of this violence. When there is corruption in, for example, the police or the judiciary system, there's nowhere for women to turn. So that's where the state must come in and provide the rights that Afghan women and other Afghan people deserve in terms of their rights before the law. And this is the critical issue for Afghanistan right now, is that there's these laws, but they need to be implemented fairly.
Well, again, this is one of the criticisms that's being leveled against the current administration, that they're not doing that. Not only are they not doing that, they're introducing things like the Shiite personal status law that actually has apparently a significantly detrimental effect on the role of women in society. Under a democratic administration and President Obama, it seems as if the kind of Bush commitments that were made are actually slipping. Would you agree with that?
I actually don't agree with that. I think there are issues in Afghanistan that need to be dealt with. Obviously, there's differing views on how women's rights should play out in society, but it's obvious that it's Afghan women themselves who want these rights, who are pushing for them, and there's a lot of support within the men as well, but they need the state institutions to enforce them. And actually, under the Obama administration, there's a new position for a global women's issues ambassador under Secretary Clinton, and that's Ambassador Verveer, and there's been more grants that have been awarded to help Afghan women-led NGOs on the ground. So this is a positive step in the right direction to give Afghan women themselves the resources. But again, within the context of the society, if they still have problems with their legal rights and with access to economic opportunities, it's still going to be difficult for them to really be able to fully capture those rights.
All right, Mariam Nawabi in California, thank you.
Thank you very much.
The son of the former Philippines President, Corazon Aquino, appears to be headed for a landslide victory in the presidential elections. With around 80% of the vote now counted, Benigno Aquino has a little over 40% of the vote. His closest challenger, Joseph Estrada, has just 25%.